You carry your shield back through the gates of Sparta. Bronze rim, ashwood grip, still yours, still intact. The leather strap has worn into the inside of your forearm the way it always has. The way it has since you were 17 and the Agoge burned that grip into your body. Sparta, 480 BCE. You completed the mission Leonidas gave you. You ran north to Thessaly, you delivered the message, you turned around, you survived. Around you, silence. Not the silence of grief. Not the silence of a city still processing what happened at the pass. This silence has edges. Every face you pass turns before you reach it. Not away, through, like you're made of smoke. Like the problem with you isn't what you did, it's that you exist. His name was Pantites. He obeyed, August 480 BCE. The geography alone tells you how brutal this was going to be. Leonidas holds the pass at Thermopylae with 300 Spartans, roughly 6,700 allied Greek troops, and a Persian force Herodotus estimates at 70,000. Xerxes has already crossed the Hellespont. He has already burned Thessaly. The Greek world is not collapsing, it has collapsed. Leonidas knows the math. Before the final stand he gives orders. Couriers go out, Pantites rides north, not deserting, carrying intelligence, doing the specific thing a Spartan soldier does when his king tells him to. The mission is real, the orders are direct. The man on the horse is not a coward. He is Sparta's communication infrastructure, moving across a war zone because his king needs information delivered. He doesn't make it back in time. By the time Pantites turns south, the pass has fallen. Leonidas is dead. The 300 are dead. The allied Greek troops, who were dismissed by Leonidas before the end, which is its own conversation, have scattered, and the story has already begun. If institutional erasure and the politics of buried soldiers is the kind of history that keeps you awake, subscribe. There's more that didn't make it into the record, because here is the version of events that Sparta needed the Greek world to believe. 300 warriors chose to die. No one was sent away. No one was ordered out. Every Spartan at Thermopylae was there by voluntary, unanimous, sacred sacrifice. The myth was not just a story, it was a political instrument. Sparta needed moral authority over the Greek alliance. Athens was powerful, commercially dominant, culturally prestigious. Sparta needed something Athens couldn't claim. It needed to own death itself. Pantites arrives in Sparta with his shield, his body, his completed mission, and his king's orders on his lips. The new Sparta has one problem. He is standing at the gate. The city doesn't arrest him, doesn't try him, doesn't strike him in the street. Not yet. What it does is something colder. The men he trained with since boyhood look past him. The training ground where he spent 20 years of his life continues without him in it. The syssitia, the communal mess, the institution that is not just meals, but the entire social architecture of Spartan male identity, has no seat for him, not formally revoked, simply unavailable. If Leonidas sent Pantites north on orders, the question Sparta cannot afford to answer is simple. Who decided those orders never happened? Sparta had a word for him. It was older than the battle. Older, probably, than the men who applied it, tresantes, trembler. Not an insult shouted in the street, a classification, a legal category with documented protocols, recorded by both Herodotus and Plutarch, with the kind of specificity that tells you this wasn't improvised. A tresantes lost his voting rights, lost the right to marry, could be struck in public by any citizen without legal consequence. Any citizen, including men 20 years his junior, including men who had never held a spear in combat. He was banned from the gymnasia, assigned the most visible, most degrading civic roles the city had available, and every one of these consequences was cumulative. Not a punishment with an end date, a condition, a permanent reclassification of what you were. Here is what almost no one says about this system. It was applied to Pantites, a man who completed his mission, followed his orders, committed no battlefield act of cowardice, and never abandoned his post because he was never at the post when it fell. The tresantes designation was not a verdict on what he did. It was a verdict on what his survival proved. Imagine, for a moment, what it cost him to walk into a syssitia and find no seat. Not a confrontation, not a debate, just the quiet rearrangement of bodies that tells you the space you occupied no longer exists. That is not shame culture operating organically. That is something with architecture. And if the tresantes protocol could be deployed against a soldier who obeyed every order, The question that should keep you awake is this: what else was it used to bury? Back to Pantites. Back to his body in the city. His shield is still on the wall of his home. Bronze, ashwood. The Agoge burned its weight into his left arm at 17, and he has carried it since. It is, at this point, the only physical proof that the mission existed, that Leonidas gave orders, that the last stand was not unanimous. Herodotus names a second survivor, Aristodemus. Missed the battle due to a severe eye infection, sent to the rear on medical grounds, returned to Sparta, received the same classification, Thermopylae, both men living in the same city, wearing the same social death, but with one crucial difference. Aristodemus had a future available to him. Plataea 479 BCE, 1 year away. The Greeks would mass again against Persia's ground forces under Mardonius. Aristodemus went to that battle and died with such ferocious, deliberate aggression that Sparta restored his name posthumously. He found his death. He used it. Pantites has 1 year. Plataea is coming. The redemption path technically exists. Sparta is about to make sure he never reaches it. What Pantites could not have fully understood. What takes a historian looking backward across 500 years to see clearly, is that his survival was not an embarrassment to Sparta. It was a threat. A live Pantites, walking through the Agora with his shield and his completed orders, was not a man who failed. He was evidence. Evidence that Leonidas gave assignments. Evidence that the 300's death was not spontaneous. Evidence that at least one Spartan was explicitly told to leave, which means the sacrifice was not unanimous, which means the myth, bring political myth that Sparta needed to lead the Greek alliance against Persia, had a crack running through its foundation. A shamed Pantites is manageable. A shamed Pantites stays quiet. A shamed Pantites does not walk into the Agora and say, "I was following orders." Ask anyone. Ask the men in Thessaly who received the message. The Thermopylae designation did not come from grief. It came from calculation. The myth needed 300 corpses. He wasn't one. Pantites wakes before the city does. Not because he wants to. Because the Agoge trained his body to rise at first light. And his body still obeys even when everything else has been taken. He dresses. The shield stays on the wall. Taking it outside means carrying the question it raises into streets that have already decided the question doesn't exist. He walks to the training ground anyway. Old habit. The kind that 20 years of conditioning burns into muscle so deeply that grief can't reach it. The men training there see him coming. The formation doesn't break. Nobody shouts. Nobody gestures. They simply rotate, subtly, collectively, with the unconscious precision of men trained to move as a unit, until their backs are toward him. This is the moment to understand what was actually happening. Because this was not shame culture operating on instinct. This was calculation wearing shame culture's face. Winter, 479 BCE. Mardonius and 120,000 Persian troops are camped in Thessaly. The war is not finished. Xerxes retreated after Salamis, but his general remains, with enough iron and enough men to take Greece city by city if the alliance fractures. That fracture is the real Persian strategy now. Not conquest by force, conquest by exhaustion. Wait for Athens and Sparta to distrust each other. Wait for the smaller city-states, the ones that already medized, that already submitted to Persia once, to do it again quietly, in the dark. Sparta is holding 31 city-states together through one story. The story of the 300 Pantites, standing at the edge of that training ground, is a crack in that foundation. Not because of anything he did, because of what his existence proved. Leonidas gave orders. The last stand was not unanimous. At least one man was explicitly told to leave. The men keep their backs to him. He stands there long enough that it would be humiliating if humiliation still had somewhere left to land. Then he turns and walks home. The shield is still on the wall. He doesn't look at it. Within months of Thermopylae, Simonides of Ceos wrote the epigram carved into stone at the pass, the sacrifice total, unanimous, sacred. No mention of messengers, no mention of orders given before the end. The inscription does not lie exactly. It simply arranges the truth until the inconvenient part falls outside the frame. Simonides wrote what Sparta needed written. Whether he knew what he was cementing is another question entirely. Now consider the second survivor, Eurytus. Eurytus was also at Thermopylae. Also struck by the same eye disease as Aristodemus. also pulled from the front line on medical grounds. But Eurytus made a different choice. When the final Persian encirclement began, he called for his helot slave, ordered the man to lead him, blind, barely able to stand, back into the fighting. He died in the pass. He died fighting. He could not see the men he was killing. He died anyway. Sparta buried Eurytus as a hero, full warrior honors, his name attached to the sacrifice. The story absorbed him completely. The contrast is not subtle, and it was not accidental. Eurytus found a death that fit the myth. Sparta had a category for that. The system worked exactly as intended. A man who died in the right place, in the right way, at the right time, got the right burial, clean, efficient, no loose ends. Pantites was a loose end with a shield and a completed mission, and this is the part that must have been unbearable, absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. Here is the question that Sparta could never afford to answer publicly. If Pantites had died at Thermopylae, if his horse had thrown him in the mountains, if a Persian scout had found him on the road north, would Sparta have called him a hero? Would his name be on the monument? Or was the erasure not a response to his survival at all, but a contingency that existed the moment Leonidas gave him the orders? The mission that sent him away was the problem. Not the man, never quite the man. Back inside Sparta, back inside Pantites, the city has a rhythm and he is no longer inside it. That is the specific texture of what was done to him. Not violence, not imprisonment, not exile. Exclusion from rhythm. The Sisisha bell rings at the same hour it always rang. The men he ate beside for 15 years file in. The door closes. Pantites is outside it, not because anyone barred it, but because the space where he sat has been quietly redistributed among men who are still real. Pantites thinks about this sometimes. Whether Leonidas knew, when he gave the order to ride north, what surviving would cost, whether the mission was genuine, or whether Pantites was always going to be a problem the moment he came back breathing, he will never know. There is no one left to ask. Aristodemos is preparing for Plataea. Training every morning, shield on his arm, eyes fixed on the battle that will redeem him. The shame is crushing, but it has a visible end. He has a direction. Pantites has nowhere to go. We don't know why. Herodotus places his death clearly after Thermopylae and offers no timeline beyond that. There is no record of Pantites at Plataea, no record of a request to fight, no record of any public confrontation, any appeal, any attempt to force Sparta to acknowledge the orders he was given. The absence is total. From age 7, a Spartan boy was removed from his family and placed inside a total institution, military training, communal living, identity built entirely around belonging to the unit, to the mess, to the brotherhood. The Agoge did not produce soldiers who could survive alone. It produced soldiers who could survive anything together. Strip that belonging away and you haven't just punished a man. You have removed the only architecture his identity was ever built on. His shield is still on the wall. He has stopped polishing it. The bronze face dulls in the damp. The ashwood grip still holds the impression of his forearm, the exact shape of 20 years of carrying it. It is the only object in his home that remembers what he was. A Spartan elder passes his door one morning. Slows. Looks at the entrance the way you look at a wound that has closed badly. Noting it, moving on. He does not knock. The city already knows what it is waiting for. Plataea is 1 year away. The path to redemption exists on paper. Pantites has days, maybe hours, before even the possibility disappears. Herodotus records it without ceremony. One sentence. Pantites, on his return from Thessaly, hanged himself. No trial preceded it. No public accusation. No confrontation in the Agora where he could at least speak, at least place his orders on record, at least force someone to look at him and lie to his face. The city never gave him that. The city gave him silence, and then more silence, and then the particular silence of men who have decided that a problem will resolve itself if you simply refuse to acknowledge it long enough. It did. Now look at the shield. It is still there, hanging on the wall of his home, bronze face, ashwood grip, leather strap worn into a shape that belonged only to his forearm. Intact, polished, present. In the whole surviving historical record of Thermopylae, that shield is the only physical object that could have proved the mission was real. Leonidas gave orders. A man rode north. A man completed his assignment. A man came back. The shield went with him every step of that journey, and it came back unmarked, unhurt, unbroken. Because Pantites was not a coward, he was a courier. He was exactly what Sparta trained him to be, but the shield cannot speak. And the man who carried it is gone. Greece wins at Plataea, 479 BCE. Mardonius is killed. His 120,000 troops collapse. The Persian ground invasion breaks apart on a battlefield in Boeotia and never reassembles. The Greek alliance holds. Not because 31 city-states suddenly trusted each other, but because Sparta's moral authority held the structure together long enough for the battle to happen. That moral authority had one foundation, the story of the 300, the voluntary death, the unanimous sacrifice. The myth worked. It worked precisely as intended. Aristodemus died at Plataea in a charge so reckless, so deliberately suicidal, that even Spartan veterans noted it. His name was restored. The Trisontes classification lifted. History absorbed him back into the story of Greek resistance and gave him a footnote that reads like redemption. He found his death, and Sparta accepted the payment. Pantites never got to make the payment. The city collected the debt a different way. Here is the number that matters. Pantites' name appears in exactly one primary ancient source. Herodotus, Histories, Book 7, Section 202. One sentence. He shares it with Aristodemus in a subordinate clause, named as the man sent to Thessaly, classified as a trembler dead by his own hand. That is the complete surviving record of a Spartan soldier who followed every order he was given. One sentence in one book written by a Greek from Halicarnassus, who was not even Spartan, who was working against the official Spartan version of events, who had every reason to include inconvenient details that Sparta would have preferred buried. If Herodotus, an outsider, working from interviews, travelling the Greek world a generation after the battle, managed to preserve one sentence, the question that should land hard is this: what did Sparta destroy that Herodotus never found? What was said in the mess halls, the training grounds, the council chambers, that never made it to a single scroll? How many men knew the orders were real and chose every day to act as though they didn't? The Lion Monument at Thermopylae was constructed in the years after the battle. It commemorates the 300 and their allies. Pantites is not on it. The Simonides epigram, still quoted, still carved, still reproduced on the walls of military academies across the Western world, names the sacrifice as total. Pantites is not in it. The Trisontes classification that was applied to him legally stripped him of his Spartan civic identity, which means after his death he would have been denied a full warrior burial, the same burial the 300 received as heroes. Iron ash in consecrated ground, a name attached to the sacrifice, was not available to the man who completed Leonidas's last diplomatic mission. That is not an accident. That is a filing system. Sparta's political authority in the Hellenic League lasted another 50 years on the foundation of Thermopylae's myth. 50 years of military dominance, of alliance leadership, of being the city that owned sacrifice, bought, in part, by one man's erasure. That is what his silence was worth in the currency the ancient world actually ran on. One shield, one name, one sentence. That is the total footprint of a man who obeyed perfectly. The myth did not stay in Sparta. It moved the way all useful myths move, through the people who needed it most. Plutarch retold Thermopylae in the 1st century CE, 3 generations after Rome had absorbed Greece entirely, because Rome needed examples of discipline and voluntary death that its own history couldn't always provide. Cicero referenced it. Medieval European scholars copied it into chronicles about Christian martyrdom. The Enlightenment made it a case study in civic virtue, the free man choosing death over subjugation, the democratic ideal expressed in iron and blood. By the 19th century, German nationalists had absorbed it into the architecture of military sacrifice that would underwrite 2 world wars. Every culture that retold the story stripped another layer of political texture away and replaced it with the version it needed. The 300 became universal. Thermopylae became a word that means something even to people who cannot place Greece on a map. And with every retelling, Pantites sank a little further, not through any single act of suppression after the 1st century. Sparta's original calculation didn't need to be maintained. It had already done its work. The myth was self-replicating by then. Every historian who repeated the story of 300 voluntary martyrs was, without knowing it, continuing the erasure, Not out of malice, out of narrative gravity. The clean version is more transmissible than the complicated one. It always is. There is a particular irony at the center of this that takes a moment to fully absorb. The 300 are remembered, celebrated, mythologized, carved in stone, adapted into films with a combined global gross in the hundreds of millions of dollars, because they disobeyed Leonidas. He ordered the allied Greek forces to retreat. He released them. He gave everyone an exit, and the 300 refused it. Their glory is built on the choice to stay when they could have gone. Pantites is forgotten because he obeyed. Leonidas told him to go, and he went. He executed the order with exactly the discipline the Agoge spent 20 years installing in him. He did not hesitate, he did not argue. He rode north, delivered the message, turned around, and came home. The men who defied their king are the heroes of Western civilization. The man who followed his king is one sentence in a book most people have never opened. Sit with that for a moment. Not as a metaphor, as a fact about how the ancient world worked, about what gets remembered and what gets filed away, about the specific cost of being useful at the wrong time. Pantites wasn't erased because he was weak. He was erased because he was competent, because he did exactly what he was asked and survived to prove that the asking happened. Somewhere, in the storeroom of an archaeological museum, in a catalogue entry without provenance, in a box of Bronze Age artifacts that arrived without documentation, there is a shield, round, ashwood core, bronze face, no name attached, no owner recorded. The curators who catalogued it noted the craftsmanship, the period, the probable regional origin. They gave it a reference number. They moved on. That is where this ends. Not with a trial, not with a verdict, not with a moment of public reckoning where Sparta was forced to look at what it did. It ends in a storage room, a reference number, the particular bureaucratic silence of an object that has outlasted every person who knew what it meant. He followed every order. The myth had no room for that. Sparta was not the only ancient military power that destroyed its own survivors to protect a story the state needed told, and the next soldier they buried this way never even got one sentence in Herodotus. Nobody remembers his name at all. The ancient world buried its most obedient men deepest, and there are more of them underneath this one, still waiting in the record.